Hey guys, Scott from Aristocob.com here.
And Seth from theshrinkingpastor.com.
Together, the three of us, Markwood Men's Breakfast Club. Welcome back to another club meeting. We're already getting a head start on our schmoking. I am schmoking in my Country Gentleman, which I have replaced the standard black stem with the straight amber Danish bit stem. What do you got? Oh, okay.
This one.
That's actually an older Diplomat. How long have you had that?
I don't know, a while?
That's an older one. That's pretty small. Diplomat vent with the Danish stem, which comes standard on that. But more importantly than what we're smoking is what we're smoking. What are we smoking in these, boy?
A couple of weeks ago, if you caught our live show from Chicago, we mentioned the that smoking cigars. All right. It's a website. That
Pipes and Cigars. Pipesandcigars.com.
Pipes and Cigars has blended some blends designed specifically for Missouri Meerschaum.
Russ Olette is the blender who also, my gosh, Russ has come out with how many different
tons of stuff.
Tobaccos. The Hearth and Home line was all blended by Russ.
Meat Pie, which disappointed me because it doesn't taste like meat. But we talked about that in the Chicago show, too.
We did.
And so we had a chance to meet him in Chicago, and we were both kind of skeptical. Okay, you say that this tobacco is designed to be smoked in a cob. What does that really mean? And so they've got 4 different tobaccos for cob smoking. And what did he say?
Well, first off, they are being marketed under the brand Missouri Meerschaum, though Missouri Meerschaum has nothing to do with the actual selling of the tobacco. You can't call them in order the tobacco. It's being marketed, branded with their name, which I think was actually a pretty clever tie-in. And the names of the various tobaccos of the 4 blends are names of pipes from Missouri Meerschaum. So last time we were smoking the Great Dane, and again, your pipe, the Diplomat pipe, is part of the Great Dane family of pipes from Missouri Meerschaum. Now the shape and the name of the tobacco have nothing to do with one another. You don't have to smoke a Great Dane pipe to enjoy the Great Dane tobacco, but there's one aromatic, that's the Great Dane, and then the other 3 are not English, they are blends that are not aromatic. So right now we are smoking
Missouri Pride,
which I don't know if
Burley
you can
in Virginia.
see this. It's just, nope, you can't see it. It's just tobacco, right? I don't think there's any casing in this at all. And just simple pipe tobacco.
So
grandpa's pipe tobacco.
What he said makes this unique is that the tobacco that he used is a lower sweetness. It's kind of a little bit harsher because the cob pulls sweetness out. It makes the tobacco extra sweet. So he says there's a pretty stark contrast when you smoke this tobacco in a briar versus smoking it in a cob. And he designed it, built it, blended it specifically for cob smoking. So if you try it in your other pipe, in your briar or your Meerschaum, you may not like it as much.
And we would encourage you to do that. I would love if there'd be some way to do a blind or even double blind test where people could draw like on a hookah hose and behind the wall is the various types of pipes.
We'll set that up.
But take 2 pipes, load them both, a briar and a cob, and smoke them both and see what you think of that. The whole thing about getting sweetness from the cob, though, to me, I still call a little bit of BS on this, because if it's a brand new cob, yes, you're getting a little bit of the cob burnage. But if I pull out a pipe that I've been smoking for a year, you're not smoking any of that cob. So
the other thing is with the aromatic, the Great Dane, they don't use as much propylene glycol as he would on a normal aromatic. Which
should mean it's not so goopy,
lowers the sweetness, and shouldn't be as goopy because of the breathability of the cob. So, they're anticipating it not getting so hot, so it might burn a little hotter in a briar.
That's right. But again, those folks that are aromatic because of, in part, the propylene glycol, they should give it a try. I like that stuff. We tried that last time. This is just
they recommended letting it air out for maybe an hour, but it shouldn't have to air out for days like some aromatics. So, while we were also there, speaking of cobs, we had the the great privilege of doing a quick interview with the
General Manager Phil Morgan.
General
Manager. His bride. It was
Missouri
manning the
Meerschaum.
booth. We pulled him away from his booth for a few minutes to talk with him. I don't know, just about stuff. It's he's a neat guy. Enjoy talking to him. And anyway, we thought we'd share that. Now, we did have a little bit of a glitch. The camera stopped at one point, and we had to go and delete some videos from the camera.
Yeah.
And then change. I think we even had to change the format that we were recording, so you might see a quality difference.
Yeah.
It's not your device; it's the video.
Yeah. But we asked him. Tried to ask him questions that he doesn't get asked often. And really, he ended up telling us kind of the history of how he got involved in the business and some of his favorite, most interesting parts of it that he didn't really know going in. So it's a really cool interview. We appreciate him taking the time out of his day to come and talk with us. So
without further ado,
watch it.
So we're talking what we might talk to you about, and we thought one of the things would be, I'm sure you say the same things over and over. Every time you're interviewed, you talk about the challenges of getting good years of corn and all that stuff. What's something that no one has ever asked you that you think is interesting about your business?
Holy cow, that is a good question. And it is one of the questions I do get asked all the time about the corn. But what is amazing to me, though, is when I give the people the answer to that, how many people don't realize after 145 years and after they've known us for so long, they still don't realize that we grow our own corn, that we have a 150-acre farm, and that we grow the corn. So
the assumption is you just buy the cobs somewhere at the market?
I think that they do, but obviously those are people who don't understand modern farming practices either, because if they did, they know that farmers don't harvest the cob anymore. I mean, they harvest the grain, grind the cob up, and put it back out on the field. So
that becomes fertilizer.
So that's and it's efficient. I mean, they have one combine that does the whole thing, picks the ear, shells the corn, grinds the cob out, spits it back out on the field, so they don't have to deal with it. So I think it's not an answer to your question, but the surprise to me is that they don't know that.
Sure.
That they don't understand that.
I don't know that the average person knows how corn is made for eating either.
You're probably right. Yeah, but I love answering the question, because then it gives me a chance to tell them about that we own 150 acres, that we grow the corn, that it's our corn. Because then the next question they'll ask is, what do you do with the grain? I think they assume since we only want the cob, that we just pitch the grain.
You burn it.
Yeah, we burn it. I think they do think that. Or they think you can replant it, which with hybrid seed, the first generation, you may get something good, but you're not going to get anything.
So just so you know, we are recording, and my plan is not to re-record any of this. I'm curious about that. So you keep talking. So a hybrid, as opposed to what? I mean, if you were to get corn that you could plant, and then you could take the seed off and replant that's...
You can't do that with much corn anymore.
Okay.
Now, back in what's called, and I learned all this once I started managing the corncob pipe company, the open pollinated types of corn you can save seed. And back in the 20s and 30s, that's what farmers did. They saved some of their seed and they could plant it the next year because it was open pollinated, meaning that it pollinates itself basically, and
the pollen from one plant pollinates
and it's the same. Well, now with hybridized corn, it's not the same varieties. The corn, the seed is made up of two different varieties. So you grow that, but the seed you get is not something that will necessarily have the traits of the two parents again next year. It may. But a very low percentage of it probably will actually have it.
You have to work a Punnett square on that, right?
Yeah. And so you can't save the grain and replant it. But most corn, and a lot of people don't realize that either, all corn nowadays is hybridized. Even the Indians, the Native Americans, are the ones who hybridized grass, 2,000 years ago to eventually end end up with what is corn, what we now know as corn. So all corn is
No,
hybrid.
but they were going for corncob pipes, right? That was
Yeah,
ultimately
absolutely.
the destination.
Absolutely. They knew they were going to run out of clay at some point, so they were going after corn. No, but so it's all corn is hybrid. But ours, another question that we sometimes get asked, especially from people in Europe, is our corn genetically modified?
Yeah.
And the answer is absolutely not. It's not genetically modified. And most of the time, the kernel is white. Most of the time, it's white corn. There is some yellow that gets mixed in. And then a lot of people want white corn for cornmeal. It is a food-grade corn, so a lot of our grain actually gets used for cornmeal. So I still haven't answered your question, except I guess what I'm telling you is the thing that surprises me is, and maybe I was the same before I got into this business, is that people don't understand a lot of what growing corn means, especially comparing how we have to grow it and harvest it and deal with it, opposed to the modern day farming practices.
But you're not harvesting by hand, so you're doing something that's between what we do today.
And what they did, we harvest with, it's a 4-row picker, and I think there's one of my videos that may have from last year. You may have seen that. But it's a 4-row corn picker made in the 1970s. Whenever some people were still harvesting the ear and all, and the only people who do that other than us are seed companies. Because they will harvest the cob and all, but it's the machines they use are just not appropriate for what we do. So it's an old 4-row corn picker, which is if you remember when 2-row pickers or even 1-row pickers that they just pull behind the tractor. Well, the 4-row picker is just a beefed up version of the old 2-row pickers that they used from back in the 20s, 30s,
Which is like
40s.
a hedge clipper with a little channel that feeds the stalking.
Yep. It feeds it. There's chain on the heads. There's chains that gather the corn up into it, and then it just literally just squeezes the ear off of the stalk. So, So anyhow, that's so the corn picker we use is from the 1970s. They don't make them anymore. There's one place in Iowa, thank God, that can still get parts for it.
And they made things in the 70s so well, too, I recall.
Yeah. Actually, they did. These things.
Did they really?
Did make
Well, that's good. So they weren't made by GM or Ford then, right?
No, they were made in Iowa, I believe. So,
actually, sorry, GM Ford customers. I meant Chrysler.
But they were made in corn country in Iowa, so they were good machines, new idea of making them. So, and like I said, thank God you can still get the parts for them. And there are actually people, some of them are Amish, who will, if you have a machine part for some old machinery that you can't buy, if you'll send them a picture of it with the specs of it, or send a broken piece to them, then they'll actually machine it.
That's lucky too.
Yeah, so we're lucky in that regard.
So I bought an Aristocob pipe yesterday, a genuine Aristocob pipe. For those of you who don't know, it's a metal pipe that was made back mostly in the 60s, but into the 70s as well, right?
Yeah.
And at one point, your company bought that from the original manufacturer. But I think you were making the corncob liners.
The insert,
Yeah.
the cob insert.
So why aren't those available anymore?
Well, I wish they were still available. They're, as you know, it's a great Art Deco looking metal pipe. I think it's a cool looking pipe,
It is.
regardless of how it smokes. I think it's a good looking pipe. So, but the company that was making the metal parts was in Michigan, and they I don't know the whole story. You even know the story better than I do.
No, I can't follow the
for
trail.
For some reason, they went out of business, and for some reason, the mold for the Aristocob, nobody knows where it is, and it probably doesn't exist anymore. So, I would love to do it. I'd love to bring the Aristocob back, but it would mean having somebody machine involved.
That's a big investment.
Oh, it's a big one. Yeah, you're easily talking, even for something small like that, you're easily talking $30,000 then the other part that would be difficult, and this is to me is the most unfortunate part of it, those inserts. We had a machine that made those inserts. As you know, they're very thin and they have to be a specific size. The machine that we had to make those inserts, no, it's not around anymore. And
Okay, after a few problems with the camera, we're back on. So you were talking, wrapping up about the Aristocob pipe, and you were saying that the equipment to actually produce the
insert, the insert. We made the insert, but we didn't make the metal portion of it. And the machine to make the inserts, apparently, maybe 6 years ago, they were cleaning out old machinery at the plant.
And they weren't using it, right?
They were using it, which was, to me, was just an absolute huge mistake. They must have cleared it out at that time. And that's back when, if you remember, 6 or 7 years ago, the price of scrap was just through the roof practically. Yeah. So they were taking advantage of that and clearing out all this old iron. Sure. And unfortunately, that machine, and there's a couple other machines that I wish we still had too, that did certain things to some of the cogs, and we just don't have them. So the other, not only with having to get a mold made to make the metal part of it, we would have to come up with a way to get that to make that insert. And like I said, as you know, that insert is thin, walled,
difficult to make.
And it would be a difficult one to make.
So what you're saying is eBay. Which they show up on eBay with incredible frequency.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there's obviously people have it. You know what I think part of it is people are finding them. I've talked to several people who there's somebody in their family just either passed on or just decided to go through all their stuff and they found it. You know, they said, my grandpa must have had this or my dad must have had it or whatever. So, but eventually that'll dry out.
That's true. The last few people we've talked to, they've found them in their attic or in their own collection. They're like, oh yeah, this was mine. I had this in the 70s.
And as a matter of fact, there was a gentleman that came by yesterday who said just that he was going through all of his pipes, and he says, and here I find that, I found an Aristocob in there. He didn't have it with him. He just told us.
Now, speaking of finding something, did you see Dion's pipe? You know who Dion is? Yeah, yesterday he showed up with it had a bamboo stem on it, and then it had the George Washington image on the bottom with the...
Yes.
And he paid $2. Now, how old was that pipe?
Oh, I told him, he brought it by, and that pipe has to have been around the 1900.
Because it was after the H. Tibby brand, right? So it said Missouri Meerschaum.
Yeah, it does, but it is the very first logo that Missouri Meerschaum company had is that logo with George Washington in the center of it. So it's turn of the century. Yeah. It may be 1910 or it may be 1895, but it's
and that wasn't a peel and stick label. That was a decal, right? It looked like it was.
Yeah, and it's still there. I mean, it's still sticking to it. I mean, whatever they used to put that on there.
It's sticking better than the $2 price tag was sticking.
Yes,
amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea because I bought an Aristocob pipe yesterday. Dion found that. I wasn't expecting to find so much of this estate pipes and these old new stock.
Yeah.
New old stock.
New old stock, I guess. Yeah, but you do at these shows. I mean, you do, and it's not just this one; it's all of them. That you have the people that's what they sell. They're not necessarily artisans; they're not necessarily pipe makers. They may be make a few pipes themselves, but they're just collecting pipes, these estate pipes, and they'll just buy a whole bunch of them and whatever's in there, throw a price on it that they think it'll sell for, and obviously $2. I mean, I would have given the guy $4. No, I would have given.
I offered Dion $4 for it. No, I offered him $3.
I would have given the guy $20 for that pipe. In fact, I wish I had seen it because I'd love to have it. It's an unsmoked
and he bought it on the second day.
Turn of the century.
It was here. It was here the day before.
Yeah.
The whole day. So amazing.
He found a gem.
Yeah. Well, step aside just a second, boy. As you can see, back over here is Missouri Meerschaum's booth. And manning the booth right now is your lovely wife, which we pulled Phil away from the booths, and he has graciously offered to stand here for a few minutes. I guess I have a question about the show as it relates to your booth. What are you showing that you didn't show last year, and is there interest in it?
Well, there definitely Yes,
Can you step in a
the
little
one
bit?
thing that, as you know, the one thing that came out, Russell led with his blends of tobacco, that putting our name on it, and blends that are meant to be enjoyed in corncob pipes. But along with that, I'd always wanted to bring back a Dublin style, or a bowl shape, the Dublin style bowl shape. We made one probably 80 years ago. But so we'd already had that design. So when he came up with this idea of the tobacco, they also wanted to have some pipes that would kind of went along with that. Well, so that pipe, I thought, well, that's good. Let's use that pipe. Call it the Mark Twain. So we have the Mark Twain pipe. We've got
Tom
Sawyer, and a Huck Finn to kind of go together there with the tobacco. So that's as far as the new things, and we actually had a new design of what may be a Great Dane at some point, and that was one of the people in the plant on the lathe made about 12 of these pipes and gave them to me just as we were leaving. I didn't even get a chance to smoke one, and we sold every one of them.
Oh my God!
So, but they may have sold because
you're still not
we may
convinced?
never make these. So
Yeah.
they may be thinking that's the only one. I'll have one of the 12, only 12 that were ever made.
Could be.
But they were popular, so we may end up doing that one too. So, but as far as new things, the Mark Twain, the Huck Finn, the Tom Sawyer, really are the true new things that are out there.
And I don't know why everybody's curious about new things, because you guys have been doing it right for so many years. How much do you need to mess with things?
Yeah, well, doing it right, obviously, enough right to stay in business for 145 years.
That's
Let me
true.
put it that way. There's always quality issues we need to improve on. But the one thing we definitely, and you know this too, we will always, if there's a problem with one of our pipes, we will always take care of it.
Yeah.
And we want feedback. If we're doing something wrong, we, as you do, and we appreciate it, we want you to tell us. We want our customers to tell us if there's something that we're doing wrong you think we can improve on. So, and a good example of that is putting the hardwood bottom in the Country Gentleman pipe, which you had wanted us
You're
to do
welcome.
for a long time. So, and I wholeheartedly agreed with you on that. And it's made it a better pipe. So,
Well, all right. So for fans of Aristocob.com, any of the new pipes that become available, we will certainly be carrying them in our store. Obviously available from Missouri Meerschaum as well. And thank you, Phil. We appreciate your time.
You bet.
You're such an interesting guy.
Oh, yeah, right.
I enjoy
Scott.
getting you in front of the camera.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. It's thank you too. Yes.
Yeah, and next time just keep it down, son.
Yeah. He's a good background.
Yes, he is. It's like having my own personal green screen. All right, hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah, thank you.